Today we are making flounder and papillote. So basically fish steamed in a packet of parchment paper. We're gonna do a really easy wrap today. So it's gonna just be flounder with some greens, a little miso, some fresh lemon, a splash of white wine, tucked into a lovely little wrapper of parchment paper, and then steamed to perfection. It's really easy. The cleanup is ridiculously simple. Everybody gets their own packet. It is very healthy and light, but it is phenomenally flavorful. When it comes to picking the kind of protein you want to cook and papillote in a parchment packet, you can really do just about anything that's like light and lean. Like fish works beautifully. Obviously, we're using a white flaky fish like a flounder today. You can do it with fluke. You can do it with salmon actually works. Obviously not a white flaky fish, but salmon works great. You can do shrimp. Anything that works well with that kind of poaching, steaming method is going to work very well here. And you do want to add some flavor back because really it's sort of, the protein's just cooking from the surrounding steam of whatever liquid you add. And for that reason, we do want to add a little bit more flavor into the packet, which is where the white wine comes in. And the miso paste is a beautiful little addition there. The thing I think is a must in any kind of papillote preparation is a nice, some hit of onion. You can do some sliced onions. You could do chives or scallions thrown in there. Just like I would do a bigger cut of scallions, just kind of leave it in 2 to 3 inch pieces and throw those in. Lovely. I'm gonna have leeks as the flavoring allium in our dish today because they just sweeten as they soften in the miso and the white wine, and they create a lovely little base layer for your fish. So just peel off that outer layer. I showed you way back when at Thanksgiving how to beautifully clean leeks. And if you feel like you just want to double check, slice them open and see. Again, the leeks these days are very clean, very fresh looking. So I'm not going to bother to do our little rinsing technique, but if you found some dirt or some silt hiding out in your leeks, go ahead and give them a quick rinse, submerged in water, and then dry them off and continue with your thin slice like I've just done here. Beautiful. You can never have too many leeks. And you want like a nice thin slice on these guys so that they cook and soften at the same time as your fish, which should just be about 15 minutes. It's a really fast and easy thing to put together, especially for a quick weeknight meal. Love it, but it's fancy enough that if you wanted to do it as like a serving item, if you're having people over for the weekend, live it up, live it up. Those are ready to go. I also am going to have some broccolini in this dish. And again, it's really about building up these packets, giving lots of different textures and flavors coming through. But you want everything to cook roughly evenly. So if you have a lovely tender broccolini like so, you can leave it whole. If it came with a slightly thicker stem, I just go ahead and slice it down the middle so that everything's gonna cook at the same time. Fresh dill, a must for me on this dish. If you don't like dill, you can swap this out with some fresh parsley. I just want a little bit of like a vibrancy from a fresh herb. Mint is nice, but it can be overpowering and it will turn like a little brown. Tarragon. Tarragon would light this dish up. I fully recommend, but today we're using dill, which I love. And then a nice big handful of spinach. So get yourself a nice piece of parchment paper and start by laying down a decent handful of spinach and just gather it together into a bed roughly the size of your fish. The spinach will wilt way down, so you will not be left with quite as much as it looks like here. And also the moisture from the spinach is really going to help us to give that steam bath to our flounder. And I'm positioning it so that I will be able to fold my parchment paper in half and create this nice little packet. So that's just, think about that roughly when you start to create this bed for your lovely fish. On top of the spinach, I'm going to add a nice little handful of our fresh chopped leeks. This is not a time for abundance of like everything overflowing. You want to be precise about how much you're adding so it all is going to stay sealed and cook evenly and beautifully. So I'm doing 2 broccolinis butt to butt and a few slices of lemon. And if you see little seeds and you want to pull those out, go for it, but I'm not that fussed. Season with a little salt and pepper so that every layer of this gets nice flavor. Now grab a piece of your fish, a beautiful flaky white flounder here. Cooks up fast. It does kind of take on the flavor of whatever you've surrounded it with, which is why we love our miso paste. So go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of warm water to a bowl, and then about 2 or 3 tablespoons of a white miso paste for a wonderfully flavorful umami boost. A little bit of sweetness, a nice savory punch. This really kind of coats the fish with a luxuriously buttery experience. It's a little sweet, has a great savory kind of umami fermented hit, but it cooks down very mild. So a really nice way to experiment with miso paste if you're not already using it in lots of cooking. Go ahead and get yourself, whatever, any kind of spoon. I seem to be out of normal size spoons. And I just kind of lay this down onto this beautiful piece of fish. And I do kind of like a couple little pockets of a little bit extra sauce. It's nice when you're cutting into it. It kind of just oozes over the mix really nicely. A little more salt here, just a touch. You can also season the miso paste itself, and then you don't need to do this each time, but I don't mind. And now we want to flavor and freshen with our dill. Just get rid of any sort of thick stems, but the tender ones will cook just fine. But that's not all. After you've done that, here's how you're gonna just take it over the top. Are you ready for this number? I'm using a Chardonnay today, but you can use any, typically I use a dry white wine, but really you can use any white wine you like. Anything fit to drink for the most part is fit to be used in this recipe. You be the judge. The idea of like me for the first time breaking out a tablespoon measure to dole out the wine is hilarious. Go ahead and add a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of white wine sprinkled right over your fish, plus a teaspoon of olive oil. But hot tip for you is that if you feel like being extra decadent today, you can add little dollops of butter on top here. It melts down as the fish cooks. It is a truly spectacular little number. And butter plus miso, chef's kiss. It's gorgeous. Okay, let's craft. Let's do it together, guys. I have seen en papillote and parchment packet done. There's just so many different ways you could wrap it up, and some are very fancy and some are less so. I'm going to show you a very basic, what looks kind of like an empanada, sort of just closed clamshell look. One thing I have seen done that I'm not doing today, but just telling you in case you feel like you want the glue, you can do a little egg wash around the perimeter of half your sheet. And then when you go to fold it over, you have a nice, really kind of sticky element to just help hold the sheets together. But for us, we are just going to rely on good old wrapping technique to make it possible. So start here at this midsection and just fold a nice little rabbit's ear in like so. And then all you're going to do is go to the center of the fold you last made and continue working your way around to form a lovely sealed in packet. You can help press out any air that's gathering. You don't need anything too puffy. You just want to help lock in that moisture that is going to help steam your protein and veg to perfection. And then once you get to the end here, just fold it off. And if you want to tuck it down, just so nothing is going to come undone, that works very nicely. And onto a baking sheet. And let's keep working our way through. I went ahead and spread them across 2 baking sheets so they were not going to be steaming on top of each other. I really want a lovely open air surrounding heat environment for our flounder and papillote into a 425 degree oven. These will cook up in about 15 minutes. You'll know they're done because the fish will be tender and white and flaky and opaque. The vegetables will also be tender and perfectly ready to eat. The miso will have melted ever so slightly. Everything will be juicy and flavorful and steaming, puffed up in our golden brown packets. So the fish has been in the oven 15 or 16 minutes. You can see They are nice and slightly puffed. Before I take them all out, let's just go ahead and check on one, make sure we're happy with how the fish is looking. It should be tender and flaky and opaque. Oh yeah, look at that steam releasing. All those juicy veg coated in our beautiful miso. Let's taste it and see if we like what we've got going on. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. So juicy, guys. Sometimes lean proteins, you know what? Before I dry out the other ones, let me pull this out first. Oh, that is good. That is so good. Yum, yum, yum. Cooked up fast. These were in the oven about 16 minutes. They are juicy. They are flavorful. I should need another bite in my mouth before I can tell you fully about the experience of dining on flounder and papillote. So the miso does something really interesting, which is as it cooks, it really sweetens. It lightly crusts over the surface of the fish. Even though it doesn't get hard, it just sort of gets a little stickier. Flavors all those vegetables underneath that also got plenty of lovely additional steam from the wine, that little bit of olive oil. Let's make sure the broccoli rabe is tender. I love that it actually gets this gorgeous sort of golden brown crispness at the edges. Come check this out. So even while it's in that little steam packet, it still gets flavor. That little bit of lemon adds that citrus, that acidity, that like tanginess that cuts right through the richness of the miso addition. Sometimes with lean protein, there is that risk, that fear of drying it out, especially if you don't time your cook properly. Talk about turning out a feast for a crowd in no time flat with perfectly cooked results, super juicy and flavorful, ultra light. Go ahead and grab your plate. Everybody gets their own gorgeous individual and papillote paper packet. They sit down. They open it up. They say, my, what's this surprise? What do you have for me in here? Oh, how did you know? It's just what I wanted. A gorgeous, fantastically fresh and flavorful piece of flounder. Now, let's talk about finishing it up. Should you want to gild the lily, get a gorgeous and washed, because you're gonna use the rind, washed lemon, and just zest it over top to give yourself a little bounty of additional freshness. You could even do that with fresh horseradish. Crazy. Tiny little drizzle of olive oil over top. If you had more fresh dill, I would do that, but because I know I don't, I'm going to use nothing. I'm going to use nothing because my mint looks horrible. Save some fresh dill so that you have fresh dill to sprinkle on top. And voila, dinner is served. Let's just go to the center and just so you see how beautiful. Ah, look, look, the lemon kind of just melts apart and flavors everything underneath so that your leeks are juicy and your broccoli rabe is tender and your spinach is beautifully cooked. And then your fish, your gorgeous, juicy, perfectly cooked, miso-coated flounder. It's fantastic. Look, it's like literally falling apart. Health food that tastes divinely decadent, celebratory, fun, beautiful, and fun to eat with everybody getting their own little special packet. It's my kind of dinner. And then when you're all done, cleanup is this.